Necromancy. The true power over life and death. I use this to vanquish my foes and ruin those of the mortal plane.
Well, I would, but man does Undead suck in 5e. Greetings everyone, Arcanist here. Look, we've all been there before. We all think undead are really cool, and they are. It's the ultimate way to show that someone's pure evil just by how willing they are to raise and lower the dead, and essentially mess with the balance of mortality. But haven't you noticed, there isn't a very good slew of undead to throw at your players. I mean, you have a few beefy zombies that you can go at, but there's not a lot in the book for just straightforward undead, you know, other than ghouls, skeletons, zombies. So in this video, we're going to be jazzing up the undead. So bust out those mallets and those skeletons, because we're going to be playing them like an xylophone. Throughout this video, I'm basically going to provide a few ways that you can beef up undead that you already have access to, and give you a few of my own special concoctions that I enjoy using. Feel free to use any of them that you want. You don't even have to use any at all, but maybe it'll spur some creativity within you, and that's what I'm all about. So, first things first. Zombies, ghouls, skeletons, things of that like, things that you expect to be made in mass by Necromancer, just go ahead and give them pack tactics. Goblins have it. Why not zombies too? The whole horror of zombies is always the zombie horde. Where there's one, there is many. They are an incredibly weak monster that is relatively easy to break down. Why not give them a +1 if there's an additional zombie right next to them? Their attacks are already pretty low, and you want to provide the terror of being surrounded by undead. Jazz it up. You're using undead. Make it a little spooky. Now, the same can be said with ghouls, skeletons, and things of that ilk. But I want to stick with zombies for just a little bit. There's a few ways you can handle zombie virus. You can have it so that when a player dies or an NPC dies, they have to make a save for turning into a zombie. That's a little extreme. You can do, if they've been bitten, they have to roll for Constitution to get a disease. The effects of which you can vary greatly. You can make it something that's nothing within the first half hour, then they become poisoned, and then they have to roll for losing health, and then if they die this way, they become a zombie. That's one way to do it. You can make the poison effect faster. Everything that I'm saying is increasing the CR of these monsters, so keep that in mind, some more than others. So if you're going to take a few of these things, that's great. If you're taking a lot, remember, you might be beefing them up a little bit beyond that of your characters. But let's get off that tangent and get back to zombies. I love using zombie diseases. I like making things just a little pizzazzier, but that's just me. Skeletons. They're vulnerable to bludgeoning, they're only immune to poison, and their AC's 13. Now remember, this is a human with less, and it's just the hardest part of the human body. Pizzazz it up a little bit. Sure, it's vulnerable to bludgeoning. Why not make it resistance to piercing? Because it's hard to stab through something that is missing most of its mass. Provide basically a yin-yang to it. I guarantee you your players are probably going to enjoy the fact that it already has a variance to it immediately, and things such as, you know, oh, I wasn't expecting it to be so hard to hit. Well, then maybe you switch to your bludgeoning weapon. Give your players the opportunity to react, change their strategy, and take it down an easier and funner way. Remember, they are just bones, so maybe give them some damage resistance. Maybe things like cold, fire. I know you can have a bonfire, that's the origin of the word, and you can burn skeletons, but it takes a lot, and it takes a lot of heat, and it's going to do a lot more to flesh than it does to bone. Just something to think about. Your ghouls? Maybe give them a rending ability. They are meant to be a little bit more drastic and animalistic, give them a bleed ability, a sicken ability, maybe increase their speed ever so slightly. Give them something to be scared of. That's the whole point of Undead. You want it to be a zombie movie. Let's actually bring this back to zombies for a second, because there's another few variations that you can do with zombies. You can have clawed zombies, you can have running zombies, you can have zombies that explode for either poison or acid damage in a vicinity around them when they die, like pus-filled, gross ones. Or maybe not all of them are like that. Maybe tell your players that one of the zombies in front of them is just a little bit more full of ichor and pus than the other ones, and it looks like it's bloating. They'll be curious, they'll know it's different, and when it explodes and they get covered in gross undead pus, they'll probably thank you for it. But since we're still talking about zombies, ever notice that there's a lot of things that already exist in Dungeons & Dragons? Well, why don't you just make them zombies? All you got to do is just kind of add in a sort of, undead fortitude. You can just slap that on there, right? Or play with immunities. Think to yourself, well, if this was a zombie version of this, would it have the immunities that it had when it was a monster? Or would it have a few new ones? You're already given a few good selection of monsters that have then turned into zombies, such as the Tyrannosaurus Rex, but live a little. Make things your own. Why not have a rock that's turned into a zombie? Why not have a giant fish creature? Just play with the field. Make it your own. It doesn't have to be something from the book, and quite frankly, when it isn't, your players tend to enjoy it a little bit more. And it's really easy to just create a zombie template and slap that onto stuff. If you're worried about power balance, don't be. At the end of the day, you are making it a zombie, so it's going to take extra damage from Radiant. And there's the turn undead. It's the blight, pun intended, of the undead. If there's a cleric in your party, you already know it's tough fielding undead, because your cleric's just on top of it with turn undead. Give yourself the advantages that you can. Have fun with it. Throw armies and armies and armies of zombies at your players. It's what I did once. My players have been trapped in an alternate dimension that was completely taken over by undead. There was no humans left except for one person who had slowly gone insane and trapped himself inside of a castle. The players had to help defend him, and they just had to fight onslaughts and onslaughts of undead. When you're a high-level player, a zombie's not a problem to you. But 100 zombies? With pack tactics? Oh yeah, another fun thing I like to do. Mess around with Undead Fortitude. Undead Fortitude already works thusly. If the zombie were to drop 2, 0, or below it, they have to make a Constitution save, where the DC is 5 plus the damage taken. If they pass this, they get to come up with 1 hit point. If they don't, well, they die. Pizzazz this up a little bit. Don't make it 5 plus the damage taken. Make it be 5 plus the overflow of damage. Let's say that there's a zombie with 10 HP left, and your players do 12 damage to it. Rules as written, that's a DC 17 con save. It's nice. It's probably not going to make it, but I like my zombies to be squishy, yet unkillable. I want them to stand back up, at least the first time. In mine, it only has that 2 damage from the overflow added to the 5. So it's a DC 7. It's got a +3 con modifier, so it's probably gonna stand back up. But what you have done is weakened it for the next time. You subtract the health that it had from the damage that was done, and then you add that to 5. It's the most simple way to say it. You don't have to do this, because sometimes that makes for some zombies that just do not want to go down, but isn't that fun? When there are zombies that you chop off one arm, and then it keeps going, and then you chop off a leg, and it just keeps on going. Now, theoretically, the way this is supposed to work is the next time it's only got 1 HP. So that's going to be a lot of overflow. Toy with this as you will. Like I said, it's not for everyone, but it does make your zombies a little bit more standoffish. Be cautious with this. This is a very easy way at early levels to just steamroll through your players. Be cognizant of that. But sometimes, you need a little bit more. You can't just modify something that's already been made. You have to create to put the true fear of God into your players. Imagine, if you will, if a wizard decided not to corrupt yet a simple corpse to make a zombie, beguiled and cursed an entire mass graveyard in a swarm, pus-filled, grotesque manifestation oozes and rips from the ground as an amalgamation of varying corrosive carcasses mold and writhe together as one undead entity. This is what I like to call the Grave Terror. I'm not going to drop the exact stat block for it because that is a personal creation of mine, and I am saving that for my content creation, and, I gotta pay the bills somehow. But I'll give you the lowdown of it. High constitution, high HP, lower that armor class. It's a giant thing and it's made of cushy corpses. Don't mess with its speed. I know you're gonna want to make it slow. Make it fast. Make it 30 feet. It'll creep them out just seeing all those corpses moving towards you. At the normal speed, that's gonna be off-putting. If you have to slow it down to 25. Remember, scale it for what you need to for your players. When I made it, it was for level 13 players. But you can lower it to something for 6. It's fine. Build it for you. Now, the Grave Terror's got some pretty fun attributes. At the start of its turn, roll 1d4. That's how many zombies fall off of it or come out of it and spawn at its starting ground. They have their own initiative, but they do spawn where the Grave Terror currently is. If you want to pizzazz things up a little bit, make the Grave Terror a legendary creature. Give it a legendary action and make that one of them. Also, another legendary action if you're going to use this, half speed or full speed. I just like having those options as legendary actions because, man, is it great just moving around on your players when you're like, you thought you were safe, but no. It's got 2 different attacks, slam because it's massive, and a swipe. I'm not going to give you exact numbers here because I want you to graft this for your campaign. Make it something terrifying if it needs to be, but if they're low, just make it slightly beefier than normal damage. You want this thing to have a kind of boss feel. Just take the damage that a zombie has and either add a heavier modifier to it or increase the die by 1. Or, if you're feeling pizzazzy, maybe make it 2 die instead of just 1. I don't know, because I don't know the HP of the characters that you're going for. And I want you to use this as a template to kind of play with your own characters and make something fun. When I imagine the Grave Terror, I imagine the Rotten from Dark Souls 2 mixed with the One Reborn from Bloodborne. Just an amalgamation of corpses kind of glued together with their own sort of viscera and pus that comes from undeath. That sort of ichor, if you will. And it's sort of hunched over, pulling itself, but while it's pulling itself, the zombies amongst it kind of help pull and drag it along as well. However you want to gauge this thing. It can be a mini-boss, it can be a powerful minion, or it can be the finale of an epic dungeon. And I'll leave it up to you. It goes good with legendary actions, but at the same time, if you just cool it down, make it slightly beefy, it can just kind of hold its own amongst a mass of other zombies. I'll leave it to you. You're the dungeon master for that game, and I have full faith in you. So you should too. Well, that's it for me, guys. Those are my tips on how to make Undead just slightly more fun to play with. Well, at least from the dungeon master's perspective. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm dropping content regularly, and I would hate for you to miss anything. Thanks again for watching, guys, and don't forget to go make some memories.